Hello, fellow travelers on the grid of death, Meatloaf here, and welcome to my ICEBERG trademark for Cruelty Squad, the next hit organ harvesting eat your vegetables simulator you've probably heard about and has been around for a couple years now. I've seen a lot of people here on YouTube make story analysis and schizo theories around the game's story, but I feel a good amount of them overlook what the game itself says and alludes to with its themes. So like a true venture capitalist, I'll use an unoriginal, oversaturated formula, in this case the iceberg, to try and give some insight into the game, as well as my thoughts on its themes based on copious reading, DMT trips, and playing of the game itself. I find this game to be more fascinating than most of the media I've ever experienced, and I cannot describe how much I wanted to make this video and descend through the madness of this game deeper than most of the superficial videos people made for Cruelty Squad when it was released. So sit down, grab an orange juice, and
here we go!
In order to be truly black suppository, you have to engage in Cruelty Squad's stock market that was fully completed with the full 1.0 release of the game. What's interesting is that this market is a proper simulation that actually reflects some of the missions you do. The game teaches you this as early as the second mission, Paradise, where you kill the CEOs of a company called G-Tech who you can invest in with your meager payment from the previous mission. With their debts, G-Tech folds and your investment is erased, but their competitors, Vego's Meatoids, jump in value, so pay attention to those blurbs of text from the different companies. You can also manipulate the stock market yourself with an implant called the Eye of Corporate Insight, but it's expensive enough that you won't get it until later when you learn how to profit max already. So it's pretty much useless until you can actually make money. Another part of the stock market, which I wish was real, is the fish market. Here you can sell the fish you catch with the fishing rod you can find in the level Sin Space Engineering, which is unlocked like any other weapon when you take it out of the level. There are many fish, with some species unique to certain levels, and all of them have a set value based on their rarity in the market. Normie Wages will tell you that fishing is a supplementary mechanic, and that the game is actually about some sort of sandbox immersive sim assassinations, but this is all bullshit. It's actually a crucial aspect of the game to fish, and is pretty much the only thing you'll ever enjoy doing outside of work, just like in real life. Organ harvesting is the final element of the market, and the second most important element to the grind set behind fishing. If you give an enemy while killing them, you can harvest their precious meat hardware for basic cash flow at set values, much like the fish market. Instead of different levels affecting drops, organs are uniquely dropped with random probability by different enemy types, so more unique or fucked up enemies will have a chance to drop more unique and bio-mutated parts that are worth more money. Cruelty Squad has an unorthodox way of doing difficulty modes, as you start the game out with the second hardest difficulty mode, which you will inevitably lose when you die for the first time. When the game starts, you're on the difficulty called Divine Light, which allows you to access certain special doors in some levels, but enemies do full 100% damage to you and have quick reactions. It decreases to Flesh Automaton, roughly the equivalent of a normal difficulty when you die for the first time on a level, and then finally to Power and Misery when you die too many times on a single level, the easy mode of the game, I guess. This is the uniquest difficulty in the game because it allows you to, as I call it, dynamically engage in mobile health replenishment, otherwise known as the cannibalization of human corpses. To return to Divine Light and thus the higher difficulties of the game, you have to find one of the 3 divine orbs in the game that, when interacted with, returns you to these higher states. Yes, you heard me right, there's only 3 orbs in the entire game. Just to fuck with you, one of them is on the last level of a basic playthrough, and another is located in a secret where you have to reduce your resolution to 640 by 480 to see it. I'm not joking. And of course, who can forget the ultimate hard difficulty, Hope Eradicated, which allows special access to hidden areas, adds new enemy types to certain missions, and is required to unlock one of the game's 3 endings. Cruelty Squad's arsenal of weapons are pretty normal at first glance, but even the most basic firearms of the game are uniquely themed. Many of Cruelty Squad's guns are based on real-life prototype, concept, or failed weapons projects from the Cold War onwards, and others are based on rare models used by certain nations like Japan. For example, the scoped K&H X-20 is based off the Heckler & Koch G11, an experimental German assault rifle that will seem familiar to Black Ops and Fallout fans, whose adoption was interrupted by German reunification and was thrown out in favor of the weapon we know as the G36. My personal favorite example is the Zippy 3000, a tiny pea shooter you can only get from Casino Catastrophe's slot machine that misfires and damages the player or just jams outright 2/3 of all shots made. It's based off the Zip .22, an experimental weapon made by the US Firearms Manufacturing Company that, of course, had the same problems as the Zippy in the game and was such a piece of shit, it outright folded the entire company who made it. Basically, it's a running joke that all the guns in the game are prototypes or just outright experimental pieces of crap that no one liked when they were made in real life. The Cruelty Squad only arms its agents with the best equipment possible. Trust me.
From the director of Platoon, the next battle is in the greatest jungle of them all, Wall Street.
We're going down the drain, okay? The stock is plummeting.
When it hits 18, buy it all.
Something big is going down. I want you to fill out the missing picture.
Mr. Gecko, that's not exactly what I do.
Where you can trade your honor.
I could lose my license. That's inside information.
For power.
If you're not inside, you are outside. I want you with me, buddy.
I'm with you, Gordon.
Trade your peace of mind.
Just the beginning, pal.
If any trouble does arise, you are on your own. The trail does stop with you.
For a piece of the action.
$100 million, buddy.
All it takes is a little inside information.
I don't care where or how you get it.
I think you owe me.
And you can trade everything you believe in.
He's using you, kid, but you're too blind to see it.
For everything you've ever wanted.
I get a strange call from the SEC. This is heavy, bud.
Why do you need to wreck this company?
Because it's wreckable, all right?
Michael Douglas, Charlie Sheen, Daryl Hannah, Martin Sheen, and Oliver Stone film, Wall Street.
A small one, but until an update in March 27, 2023, the various armor implants you could get that give you more armor at the cost of speed were actually useless, and the armor bonuses didn't apply to the player when equipped. This means that a basic upgrade new players might have considered wasting their biocurrency on was pointless to use for almost 2 years after the game had been released in early access and then finished. One of Cruelty Squad's most recognizable and infamous enemies, the Psychos, or Psychers, are humanoid creatures with large misshapen heads dotted with holes and cavities. They are most likely created by the excess life of the immortality technologies that created all the other mutants in the game. True to their names, they have a limited use of psychic powers that distorts the player's vision, screws up their aim, and forces your character to unload their equipped weapon. Psychos might seem familiar to fans of Stalker, as their abilities are similar to those of the Controller mutants, although unlike the Controllers, Psychos wield guns to damage the player directly and can't lethally attack with their powers. Despite their mutant appearances and monstrous hostility, it is shown by characters like the Casino Owner and Casino Catastrophe that Psychos can join society in the Cruelty Squad world and control companies, which, being a casino owner, would make sense considering you benefit from your psychic powers to find card counters and cheaters. One of Cruelty Squad's secret weapons, the ZKZ transactional rifle, is based off the Soviet SKS and can be found only in 2 levels in the entire game. What's so special about a gun based on a glorified World War II gun? Well, in an ironic twist considering its communist origins, the ZKZ's ballistic damage is interconnected to the player's investments in the stock market. This means if you're on the path to a true grind set and have millions of slurp coins to dump, your ZKZ will go from a pathetic pea shooter to the hand of the market itself, weaponized, and able to completely annihilate enemies with a single shot. This quirk is necessary for the target of the Cruelty Squad headquarters level, where you get the ZKZ for the first time, as the target of the level, the Avatar of Life, has the largest fixed health bar in the game and can't be easily defeated conventionally. The ZKZ is used by the player and only one other enemy in the game, a special psycho in the ultimate secret final level trauma loop called the Ambassador. Much like the player's own ZKZ, the Ambassador's gun can be controlled by the stock market, meaning if you sell all your shares, his ZKC will be practically powerless against you. While the protagonist of Cruelty Squad is never given a name in-game, and fans mostly preferred the joke name of John Cruelty, your chronically depressed contract killer does actually have an official name, quote-unquote. As a guest collab character in the isometric war crime simulator Brigador, John Cruelty is featured as MT Foxtrot, which is a play on the phrase empty fuck. This means the name of the game's protagonist is not even from Cruelty Squad itself, but an entirely different game, what do you know? Of course, it can also be argued that MT is you, the player, which is only accurate considering the average video gamer is indeed an empty fuck. In a number of levels, including Androgen Assault and Mall of Madness, you can find lone bottles that seemingly contain drugs you can consume like other quick food items in the game world. But instead of the blissful high you'd expect from opioids from an unlicensed South Dakota pharmacy, these bottles of Super Crocodile instead horrifically mutate your character to the point you can't move and effectively soft lock your game unless someone comes along and kills you. But fear not, because you can avoid this horrible fate by paying attention to your handler even if you hate his fat pig guts. The backstory of the targets of Androgen Assault warn you that the drugs the head narcotics officer had been giving to the police chief Mark mutated him into a disgusting abomination. The first bottle you'll run across is located in the evidence room with said narcotics officer, so you probably should have been a bit more observant. But hey, it's your body. If you want to immobilize yourself and live out a horrific I have no mouth and I must scream future, that's up to you. It is a free country. As early as the first level, something called biocurrency is referenced by characters as a new step in the future of money, which is obviously a parody of cryptocurrency in real life. Much like real crypto, biocurrency is shown to have a detrimental physical effect on its users, as seen with the very first target you'll probably kill in the game, Sigismund. Sigismund, who your handler notes is being assassinated because of his growing delirium around the biocurrency, rants to you about how it's the future of currency, despite the fact that it has noticeably mutated his face and caused blood to trickle down from his mouth constantly. Later targets in the level Seaside Shock are also biocurrency traders who've used their blockchain bucks to rent a cruise ship for a hedonistic pleasure cruise, and are portrayed as idiotic, paranoid venture capitalists and sexpads. Interestingly, the Cruelty Squad, at least based on your handler, seems to dislike these speculative currencies, and views their unhinged users as outside the corporate hegemony that the squad rules over, much like how crypto traders in real life are often in conflict with mainstream economists. It seems that whatever governments still exist in the corpo world of Cruelty Squad also hate biocurrency enough to hire you to kill the target in Seaside Shock, indicating that major corporations are willing to cooperate with the feds to regulate the biocurrency trade. And by regulate, of course, I mean murder all its major advocates brutally. This is still a respectable assassination company, after all.
Sure like Videodrome. Why did you watch it, Max? Business reasons. Sure. What about the other reasons?
Max Wren is a victim.
I woke up with a headache.
He has been exposed to Videodrome.
I've been hallucinating for a while, ever since...
What?
Since I first saw Videodrome.
His brain is already receiving video images.
I think that massive doses of Videodrome signal will ultimately produce and control hallucination to the point that it will change human reality.
Soon, his visions will coalesce and become uncontrollable flesh. Videodrome is seducing Max Wren.
Please, come to me now. Come to Nikki.
And Max Wren can do nothing to stop it.
What makes you think I need help? None of our test subjects has returned to normality.
Television can change your mind. Videodrome will change your body.
Long live the new flesh.
It will shatter your reality. Videodrome, starring Deborah Harry and James Woods. A shocking new vision from the creator of Scanners. Coming soon to a theater near you from Universal Pictures.
The town of Paradise is the second level in the game, a quaint, sunny suburb where you have to assassinate 3 executives of the company G-Tech. Despite ostensibly appearing quite friendly and pleasant, Paradise's white picket exterior is a melting wax mask that hides a hidden depth filled with evil forces and bizarre secrets. The most well-known secret is that of the catacombs beneath the town, something your handler actually notes in his briefing, which leads to the pitch-black secret level, the Dark World. Yeah, a portal to hell underneath this place is the most well-known and mundane secret here. That's just the kind of HOA nightmare Paradise is. A more interesting find from the Reddit user Rex Revolver in the Cruelty Squad subreddit is that the town of Paradise is a pentagram star from above, a common symbol often claimed to be an occultist or Satanist symbol. In this case, I guess it would be the latter, again considering that there's a literal hell dimension buried beneath the neighborhood. There's even further odd secrets, like how this building in the back of the map is based on Osama bin Laden's Pakistan compound he was ultimately killed in on May 2, 2011. On top of that, an extra target is added on Hope Eradicated in this compound who most likely represents bin Laden himself, with his dialogue even referencing being on the run from government agencies and hiding as a fugitive in a residential community. The aforementioned Dark World is home to a peculiar race of beings called Darkworlders, recognizable by their glowing eyes and completely black models. Darkworlders can speak to the player and use firearms much like the normal people of Cruelty Squad, but their strange appearances and sinister home dimension makes it ambiguous if they're just very fucked up humans or if they are truly supernatural beings. The target of the Dark World level, Sir John Oliver II, is revealed by his dialogue to also be the client of the mission, hiring Empty Foxtrot to kill him for fun, and references being killed by you before. This would mean he's immortal, but the life-altering technology in Cruelty Squad's dystopian world implicitly can do this for everyone, so it's hard to say if this truly makes the Darkworlders paranormal. To further complicate things, frequent references are made to corporate demons, the secret rulers of the Cruelty Squad and potentially all the corporate powers in the world. These demons hire you to kill the target in sin-space engineering to ensure that rocket missions to Mercury are less successful and feed them more sacrifices. And in fact, the skybox of this mission allows you to see these demons right up close. Notice anything familiar? What's also interesting to note is that many levels on Hope Eradicated, which add new enemy spawns to levels, frequently include Darkworlders as these spawns. This implies that the Hope Eradicated state either attracts Darkworlders to the normal world or lets them bleed through into reality from their parallel dimension to hunt down these hopeless travelers of the grid of death. This might indicate that they feed off hopelessness and despair much like the corporate demons, further muddling if they are the same thing or not. The Titanium Princess is the cruise ship that makes up the level Seaside Shock. In-game, the ship has been purchased by biocurrency investors trying to create a libertarian paradise, away from the government where they can fuck bioslaves and do whatever they want. What you might not know is that this setup for the mission is a parody of a real event where the same thing almost happened. In 2020, a number of investors working with a company called Ocean Builders Central Inc. purchased a ship originally christened the Regal Princess and renamed it the Satoshi, after the supposed founder of Bitcoin. Much like in the game, the Satoshi was intended to have a floating community aboard with retail stores, businesses, and a thriving community of CEO grindsetters who could use Bitcoin to pay for services on board. Unlike the game, this Firefest crypto disaster never materialized when insurance payments unsurprisingly fell through, leading to the Satoshi being resold again. It's a wild story and is pretty comical, so I honestly might consider making a video about it one day if some bigger channel doesn't beat me to it. First properly introduced in the level Idiot Party, the Rubber Cult is a secret society of the world's elites where members are identified by their full-body rubber latex suits they wear. The cult has 3 main color codes for their suits, with red being the color of basic members, blue being the color of the security forces the cult protects themselves with, and green being the color of the cult's priests. It seems pretty straightforward, but this cult's presence in other parts of the game reveals some interesting details. While Idiot Party is the first time you meet the cult, you actually run into one of their meetups all the way back in Apartment Atrocity, a level where the Cruelty Squad accidentally puts the hit out on you and you have to escape your apartment building. The target for this level is your landlord, who is found in his swanky apartment having a party with Rubber Cult members, and the landlord himself is wearing a high priest suit. Pretty impressive for him, considering that you need to pay $1 billion yearly to join the Rubber Cult, according to some of the members in Idiot Party. Further proof of landlord dominance in society. Don't forget this next time when you complain about a 400% rent increase, rentoids. Other cult members show up in the next level, Office, as 4 of the targets in Cruelty Squad's corporate headquarters, powerful executives referred to as the Sub-Archons, all wear masks of the cult, which makes sense considering they're powerful elites in the Cruelty Squad world. Rubber Snipers, special sniper variants who mark the player for all other snipers on the map, pop up in other levels, especially when using Hope Eradicated. They are the only enemies in the game who are able to do this, and even speak to you in little messages in the corner of the screen, letting you know that they've spotted you. Elsa Holmes is the corporate archdemoness who is seemingly the corporate demon overseer of the Cruelty Squad itself. She is a power-hungry, vindictive psychopath of a CEO, as all true grindsetters should be, who acts as the client for the player in the Casino Catastrophe mission, ordering you to kill the casino's owner because she did poorly on the slots with her corporate bonus. Blink and you'll miss it on the briefing, but you actually get to kill her in the later mission Office, where you kill the Sub-Archons and Executives of Control, the corporation that controls the Cruelty Squad. She is the final target in the Office that extends far above the rest of the building, protected by a crack security team including a golem. Elsa Holmes is one of the few Cruelty Squad characters who is an obvious parody of a real corporate figure, in her case the CEO and convicted fraudster Elizabeth Holmes. Elizabeth Holmes was the CEO of a biotech startup called Theranos, who claimed they invented a revolutionary way of testing small amounts of blood without expensive medical procedures. Of course, this was an elaborate investor fraud, and Holmes was exposed in a series of explosive revelations that led to her hasty downfall and a massive public scandal, although not before she'd accrued a net worth valuation of Theranos at $9 billion. Her investors and first board of directors also included a number of notable government officials and world elites, including the Murdoch media empire, Betsy DeVos, the future Secretary of Education under Donald Trump, and sister of Eric Prince, the founder of the Blackwater PMC, and everyone's favorite part-time author and amateur supervillain Henry Kissinger. Wait, was Cruelty Squad fictional? Right? It's a game, right? For the final entry of the Malice Layer, let's cover another character you run into who is also a deep-cut reference to a real, bizarre public figure. In the apartment directly below your characters lives an off-putting gentleman who starts reading you a very imaginative story when you meet him, before realizing your presence and telling you the most important words that are ever written in this game: what it means to be black suppositoried and debased. Obviously, this weirdo is a parody of red pill political personalities, but on a deeper level, he's a reference to the founder of the hilariously edgy Dark Enlightenment philosophy, Nick Land. Land's curated movement kickstarted what terminally online political teenagers call accelerationism, as well as the neo-fascist movement of the alt-right. The downstairs neighbor's initial dialogue is a reference to Land's schizo-rambling/slam poem Meltdown, which I will serenade you now with a stanza from. The body count climbs through a series of globe wars. Emergent planetary commercium trashes the Holy Roman Empire. the Napoleonic Continental System, the Second and Third Reich, and the Soviet Internationale, cranking up world disorder through compressing phases. Deregulation in the state arms race each other into cyberspace. By the time soft engineering slithers out of its box into yours, human security is lurching into crisis. Cloning, lateral genodata transfer, transversal replication, and cyberotics flood in amongst a relapse onto bacterial sex. Neo-China arrives from the future. Okay, you get the idea.
Let me give you a little inside information about God. God likes to watch. He's a prankster. Think about it. He gives man instincts. He gives you this extraordinary gift, and then what does he do? I swear, for his own amusement, his own private cosmic gag reel, he sets the rules in opposition. It's the goof of all time. Look, but don't touch. Touch, but don't taste. Taste, don't swallow. And while you're jumping from one foot to the next, what is he doing? He's laughing his sick fucking ass off. He's a tight ass. He's a sadist. He's an absentee landlord. Worship that? Never.
Gnosticism is an early Christian sect who famously claimed that the gods of the Old Testament and the New Testament are separate entities, the former being a vindictive false god called the Demiurge that pretends it created reality, and the latter being the true God who has love and compassion for humanity. The final boss of the level Archon Grid, which is the level that goes into the first ending of the game, is referred to in the game's files as Abraxas, the same name created by the Greek Gnostic philosopher Basilides to refer to a great archon, and was believed by later scholars to be the name of a god that ruled over physical reality, much like the Demiurge. Abraxas also shares the sun motif of this famous artwork found on a Gnostic gemstone in the collection of the Benedictine monk Bernard de Montfaucon, who is considered one of the founders of archaeology and collected many artifacts and important religious iconography during his life. The phrase, "the sun staring down with malice," is frequently mentioned, including in Archon Grid's ending, which would align with the perception of the Demiurge as a spiteful, malicious being that puts humans through the physical pains of life and limits their knowledge. MT Foxtrot's longing for true death to escape the painful immortality of the Cruelty Squad also reflects some Gnostic beliefs that death allows believers to return to God and escape the Demiurge's attacks. The game also mentions Archons, or servants of the Demiurge, at multiple points, including the name of the Archon Grid itself, and what your handler refers to the 4 control executives besides Elsa Holmes that you kill in office. With that said, it's possible that because they're referred to as sub-archons, that the true archons are in fact the corporate demons, as some Gnostic literature, like the text On the Origin of the World, tie the archons in the Bible as the fallen angels who prey upon humanity with sacrifices and idolatry. Also, fun fact, the face of Abraxas is the same face that pops up on your screen when you die, meaning Abraxas taunts you with your continued suffering every time you fail a level and restart. The Triagons are beings mentioned by the 3 targets of the secret level House, whose dialogue involves a creation myth of 3 corresponding forces coming into the world: malice, life, and death. To summarize, malice represents creation, the origin of life, with its dialogue referencing germs and the primal engine of technological progress. Life represents humans, which the Life Triagon target refers to as nerve bags, who detest the limit of life and existence, foreshadowing the immortality technology that rots the world of Cruelty Squad. It even mentions that with life comes suffering, which is definitely a running theme from the intro of the game onwards. Finally, death obviously represents, well, death. Death cuts away the excess energy emanating from life and thus creates value with life now that it is not infinite, which the game dialogue refers to as the first and second transactions. The third transaction comes with the conflict that is now created to pursue and accrue life, reflecting the setup of the game with you being an assassin and the violence that you use to benefit the lives of others at the cost of the lives of their victims. What's also important to note is that these targets are not the Triagons themselves. These giant worm-like creatures in the back of the map are most likely the real Triagons, at least that's what's implied. It's also important to note that the Triagons are not just some one-off. They will be brought up in both of the next entries of this layer and are important to the game's overall subliminal themes. Where things get interesting are how the different endings actually reflect the three themes that I just mentioned, and how choosing each ties into the overall point of these themes in the world of Cruelty Squad. In the aforementioned Abraxas ending, you kill the Demiurge and go through a portal behind it. The text on the cutscene effectively reveals that by following the basic campaign and not looking for secrets beyond, you remain trapped in the monotony of the world, deprived of knowledge as Abraxas intended. You forever walk towards a wall that never gets closer, and you don't confront the true problems of the world's excessive life and irrelevance of death. That final line about the sun staring at you with malice and all the Gnostic stuff I mentioned should clue you in that this is the malice ending, essentially telling you that you are trapped in the false world of the Demiurge, and ultimately everything you do didn't matter or change anything for the better. In the second ending, found in Cruelty Squad headquarters when you use Hope Eradicated, you confront the Avatar of Life, a grotesque being wearing armor similar to your own who wields a DNA scrambler, a weapon that mutates and immobilizes you but doesn't actually kill you. By defeating the Avatar and its massive health bar with the ZKZ or some other exploit, you meet with life itself where it congratulates your soul of an emperor and the CEO mindset. Considering you probably used the ZKZ to kill the Avatar, this praise is pretty literal, referring to your use of the market to win the game. Implicitly, by killing the Avatar, you become the new Avatar of Life, becoming its new protector and the representative of all the excess in the world of Cruelty Squad that's slowly destroying it. Note that excess in this case is both referring to the life forces and also the excess of profit that the mega corporations of Cruelty Squad utilize. This will be important for the last entry, I promise. In the third ending, where you reach the trauma loop, which comes about from you beating every other level in the game, you use something called the Cradle of Life to become a god and unmake the universe, metaphorized by the peeling of an onion. By subjecting the world to true death, destroying all this excess life, the excess energy is finally reset or fully spent, so to say. So now a new world can be created where life and death are naturally equal once more. Effectively, it's the true good ending of the game, the only ending where the world of Cruelty Squad is actually solved and all the horrors of its dystopia are finally conquered. Yeah, it's pretty grim, but that's the important theme of the game. Speaking of, let's get to the final entry. In the final paragraph of the Trauma Loop ending, which talks about energy, or rather wealth, having to be spent without profit to curb the excess of a growing system, it attributes this quote to a man named Georges Bataille. Bataille was a French philosopher with a large amount of fields and themes under his belt, but Cruelty Squad is inspired from one of his works in particular, his book The Accursed Share, from which the Trauma Loop quote originates. The basic point of The Accursed Share is that when a profitable, high-valued society creates a surplus of energy, essentially wealth when you talk about economics, it has to be disposed of through means like art, entertainment, and at most severe, war. The wasting of this energy is summarized as luxury, which I will note does not mean its spending is positive, and the titular accursed share is this excess of energy doomed to be wasted. This excess society is obviously reminiscent of a materialist or consumerist one, where much wealth and profit is wasted away on pointless spending or harmful conflicts. It's also important to note that Bataille tracks the excess of energy back from human uses to the literal energy of chemical reactions of light given by the sun itself and other parts of the natural world. This cosmic surplus of energy influencing human energies is actually referenced in the game itself by a few appropriate characters. For example, Elsa Holmes mentions how her decisions are based on the heat signatures of the sun, and the Life Triagon target talks about how life had to cull the excess organic mass and biological reactions when it first came into the world. See? It's all connected. It makes sense. The game is doing it intentionally. It's real. I swear it is. It's real. And it's all leading up to this, the final, ultimate secret of the trauma loop, of the iceberg itself, of all the world and all the excess. This final entry.